Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Of Bricks and Dragons. As we look at today's sets here, as you see, we have some of the what would have been bigger ships. Now, again, these are older Action Fleet series, so bigger ships, but still done in the same small scale here. Um, that's just kind of how Gloob had done it back then, based off of the micro machines and everything else. So we're going to look at these, and then we're going to get a good look at the Razor Crest as well. So we're going to start off going from left to right here. Now, the Jedi Republic cruiser here, I mean, it's a very simple design. Let's see here. We have, oh, here. Okay, so if you wanted to have, like the engines at full or going at a lower rate, we have a little lever here. Our landing gear is a very simple landing gear. And this being the herd ship that it is, we just have opening up for the cockpit here. That's all there really is to this ship. It was done very minimalist in that regard. The whole thing is the actual cockpit was all up in here, and if you remember from episode 1, I mean, it was wide enough for two people comfortably to sit side by side up here. This area under here was supposed to be detachable, and that was for doing like conference meetings and stuff like that, but it was also an escape pod, so as your high value personnel or whatever were doing their conferences, this could actually shoot off and become an escape pod for them, as well as 2 extra escape pods right here. This ship was always a very cool ship, and I know that they had turned it into more of a warship version where we actually had cannons on both sides here on the top as well as on the bottom, and it really was a very nice look as a precursor to what we then got as the Corellian Corvette. And then very briefly here, now we have the Naboo Queen's Star Yacht. And at one time I did have the large play set for this. And this had kind of opened up, and then we had a small ship in the front here. Although in the movie, you kind of came in on the side, and then if you would have gone into the front, into the nose here, that's where the Queen's quarters all kind of were. All the back was all for the support staff and everything else. This was really meant for luxury and showing off. These actually did fold up, so if you're trying to store it or whatever, you could fold those up so they stayed out of the way. But if you're trying to display it, it does look very nice with those out. And then this opens up for one figure. That's all we really got. If you had one of the droids, you could put the droid behind it, but that's really all the room you got on this thing. So when they had done these were done as a very minimalist take on everything. And then of course we have the Corellian Corvette, and in a very similar fashion we have the big block of engines. There is no slider or anything else to say more engines, less engines. It's just the engines being here as the big block that it is. And then of course this to me would be a docking bay, docking collar, to be able to dock. Although we did learn in the Revenge of the Sith that they did have a essentially a cargo door that could open up, and then they could fly some small fighter craft inside. And of course we have our landing gear. We can turn our radar dishes on the top and the bottom, as well as our turrets. So typically I leave the turrets aimed more towards the front, and then I will put the landing gear down and I just leave it there. And as you can see, these are supposed to be escape pods here. So we had 4 escape pods. So, and then these were supposed to be some smaller anti-starfighter cannons up here. So it was a very good blockade runner, support ship, whatever. These are more capital scale, where these are anti-starfighter. This does open up here, so if you wanted to see what one of the engines was supposed to look like, it's a very minor detail. It is kind of nice, but it is a very minor detail that they had added in. Still very minimalist for where they were and where we are today as we look at the Razor Crest for what this is. And again, it's not something I really take out and play with. I just kind of let it sit there, and then that's pretty much all I do. But when we look at all of this, let's see, I don't believe that this opens up, but I almost want to say that this should. So I'm going to try here, but I don't think it actually does open up. And I'm afraid I'm going to break it if I try too much. Just the way this looks, I really want to say that this opens up, and I don't have the instruction manual on me. I guess we'll find out. Alright, so we do have landing gear that does fold up. This back one was kind of a dickens to open up here, and of course that one folds up very nicely. This one folded up nice, but this one just did not want to get unlocked there. So that was kind of a little bit of a pain, so I'm not going to fasten that too hard. And of course we have a door here, so if you wanted to get in and out on the side, you could do that. Your cannons don't turn or twist or anything else. And if you remember correctly, this was a torpedo launcher in the front, I believe. If I want to say that those were torpedo launchers. If for nothing else, I know that they're going to be lights or something, but I want to say that they're torpedo launchers. When I was looking at the side, it's like something seems off on the side. It looks like there should be something else. Really, it's kind of done up this way because this can come out. So I can actually prop that out. And as we look inside here, we do have a person in carbonite. So if you want to kind of have them sitting sideways and other people in the back, our ramp does come down. And on the side here, I have a flap that can get locked up. And then I have a spot for someone to lay in here, or I could flop it down and kind of cover them up, and that would be like the ladder to go up there. So it is kind of hard to see inside there, but we can kind of see in there, and see if I can get my finger in there. Yeah, I don't think that opens up. It looks like it should because it cuts back right here. But I just can't remember if it was supposed to or if I'm going to break it and then I'm going to regret this. I guess we're going to find out here in a second as I try unsuccessfully here. Oh, there we are. Okay. So that does come off. So if you want to see everything inside here, although looking at this, I don't think it's really meant to come off. I think if you're doing this or whatever, it's you know, if something's broken or whatever else, you could see in there. This one side here looks like it should have another panel on there, but it doesn't. So to me, it just seems like there should be another panel to open that up, but it just really doesn't. But this does give me a chance to kind of show you. Here we have a spot for someone to lay in here, and then we have this that covers that up. So, and of course, this can go back and forth depending on how you want to do that. There is nothing else here on the side, but we do have the cockpit. So as I fasten this all back in here, there we go, snap all that back into place so it doesn't come off. So as we lift up the cockpit, we do have Din Djarin. So we have him sitting there, and of course, if I can get the other guys out, I've got what looks like a Jawa. So we have a Jawa here. Come on, stand up for me. There we are. And then I think this is, I forget the character's name, but that's the Ugnaught that kind of helped him. Come on. this was one of the issues with these figures. They didn't always want to stand. Kind of nice when they do. And I was thinking when I was going to use these for miniatures for doing like role playing and that they would work out, because I mean we can get fighters and all that stuff to work with it. But trying to do the maps and trying to figure out what's what kind of got a little bit more challenging. So I really didn't stay with that. But that was one of the reasons why I originally got into having all these guys. And of course I do have seats all the way in the back, if I can get them to stay up there. Every time I put them in here, because I tried a second time or whatever, they keep falling forward, so it's just the way it kind of happens here. The engines don't move. I keep wanting to think like Firefly that the engines would move, but they don't. And I don't think anything comes off on the engines to kind of show off the engines at all. So as far as that goes, it just kind of is what it is. But we can have this land, and it does look pretty nice. That is a nice looking ship. It's one of those things of, you kind of get torn after a while. What's your favorite ship from Star Wars or whatever? And of course, most people will sit there and say, like, of course, the Millennium Falcon and that. I've gone back and forth. I've done Star Wars as a role-playing game for many years. So, having a favorite ship, I go back and forth. It's really hard to say just one specific ship. The most well-known will always be the Millennium Falcon. But having a ship like this where it's a smaller crew, and then I can run that for a campaign or something, or even on a ship like this, I'd have droids, and then I'd have droids just doing whatever, which would be the easiest way to say for Star Trek, just generic figures or whatever, or generic stats, and say this is everyone else, but here's the main group, and the main groups is what we're working with. Trying to get back into those thoughts and all that, and again, because I do roll so bad, trying to get other ideas, but trying to get everything done, I just run out of hours in the day, and regrettably, I will say I have been kind of taking a liking to playing the Pal World, which I did do a video on, but it didn't seem like anyone was interested, so I wasn't going to continue doing it. And now I think I got a couple mods on there, so it's just for fun to play a little here and a little there. But where we are with these ships, to say that we can have starfighters, and they look like they should be roughly about the same size in comparison, that looks pretty good, especially in comparison to where we had all been way back in the yesteryear. And actually, no, it doesn't. Looking at this on an angle, almost looks like this should open up on the side, but it doesn't. Just the angle that I'm sitting at. I really wish that there was more I could show you on these, but there really isn't. I mean, like I said, it's just a little trick of less thrust, more thrust, the landing gear, and an opening up for one figure to sit in there. That's all we've got out of these old figures here. But that's really, what they were doing at the time, keeping costs down and all that. So, and just trying to find these was a little bit of a challenge at times, because I had to drive a little bit of a distance just to try and, Toys R Us was alive and well back then. Although I did hear that they're coming back, but I remember driving up to Toys R Us all the time trying to find stuff, and there's other stuff in other areas, but I just never got it. And we didn't have Amazon at the time, or Amazon was just doing books or whatever. So, just how the world was back then compared to where we are today. But we have some nice looking figures on that line today, even though I'm not really picking very many of them up. I do have a bunch of them, and we'll go through some more of this, and we'll get into some of the other fighters in that we have. And we'll just kind of go from there. But for today, we'll call the video it. Thank you so very much for joining me, sitting around the pool table, listening to the silly thoughts in my head on these silly things. what is really kind of silly, but it brings joy just to help try and create things, to have things out for, you know, like I said, I got this stuff for doing a lot more of the role-playing stuff or whatever, to have ships out there, so I could have a line of whatever's, whether it was TIE fighters or some other starfighter or some other ships, to say, okay, we're doing combat or whatever. I've learned over the years, it's kind of helped with a lot more people to have visual aids so we can figure all this stuff out. So if we're running in a Razor Crest, or we find one somewhere along the line, or a TIE fighter, or Corellian Corvette, or something else, it really does kind of help. And we just go from there. So thanks for visiting. I'll see you in the next video, and hope you're having a good day.